Welcome to the Jeremy and Andy Talk Movies podcast. I'm Jeremy.
I'm Andy, or someone wearing an Andy mask.
There's no
You'll
way to
never know.
Today we are back in the year 2000.
Yeah.
Once again, talking about a movie that is particularly relevant because of current circumstances, current releases. We are going to the Mission Impossible universe.
Yeah, we are.
The Final Reckoning releases in just a couple of days when this comes out. And we are going back to the sort of black sheep of the Mission Impossible family. The one that came out in 2000 is Mission Impossible 2.
Yeah.
Mission Impossible 2. I'm going to attempt to do a summary here. We'll see. We'll see
Good
how it
luck.
goes. Yeah. So when a scientist attempting to create a cure for numerous diseases also creates a new disease called Chimera, the contents of both the virus and the cure become an arms race between Ethan Hunt and his team and a rival agent, Sean Ambrose, who is essentially the anti-Ethan Hunt. The rivalry turns even more personal as their personal relationships with thief-turned-mole Naya becomes a critical part of the conflict. However, all the plotting is just fodder for director John Woo to get his flurry of slow-mo gunfights, flip kicks, car stunts, and characters standing coolly in front of fire while pigeons fly in front of them.
Correct.
Andy, what do we think of Mission Impossible 2?
It's a rough hang. It is very, very dated. And I'm just going to say this. I don't know if this is a hot take or not. I'm not a John Woo guy. He has a style, and he believes in it, and good for him. It is not my style. And man, does that dude love pigeons. Holy cow. Like, there's got to be like a pigeon budget in all of his movies. Like, go watch Face Off. There are just so many pigeons in that movie. Look, we've talked about it and talked about it and talked about it and done entire episodes about it. I love Tom Cruise. I love the Tom Cruise persona of I just want to entertain, but he just wasn't there in 2000. And so this movie just doesn't have that fun that like Dead Reckoning or hopefully the Final Reckoning and these later Mission Impossibles do, where it's just like we're into the fully developed Tom Cruise, I will literally die to entertain you. And we're not there in 2000. And it's just, I don't know, it's just not that fun of a hang. And there's just some really awkward, weird looking like zoom ins in this movie that are honestly just really distracting. So it's still a Mission Impossible movie. It's still Tom Cruise, motorcycling and climbing on mountains and doing cool stuff. But I'd watched the last 3 or 4 Mission Impossibles 20 times each before I'd watch this one again.
So I've always been defensive of this movie because I feel like when people criticize it, they're criticizing a subgenre of action movies that I love. I feel like when people are like Mission Impossible 2 sucks, they might as well be saying Con Air sucks or The Rock sucks or Face Off sucks. This movie is not those movies.
Yeah.
This movie is bad.
Yeah.
And as I was watching it, I was going, yeah, like I didn't need to be defensive.
Yeah.
I'm like you, like looking back now, I'm like, I'm not a John Woo guy. But back then in 2000, he was coming off of Broken Arrow and Face Off. And I was like, Woo, that's my guy.
Yeah.
And he does this. And, I'm a fan of the first Mission Impossible, Tom Cruise. It's John Woo. I was just like determined that this movie was going to be awesome.
Yeah. It's just not.
And it is, I could not believe rewatching this, how much I was like, this is not just bad. This is like cringy.
Yeah.
Bad.
Yeah.
This is everything that everybody's ever criticized about it.
It's correct.
They were right.
Yeah.
And I was wrong for trying to defend it.
It doesn't hold up well at all, does it?
It doesn't. And you're right about like, there's so many weird things in the editing and
It's so strange.
There's also weirdness in like the slow-mo sometimes. I'm like, I don't know if it was just the technology back there or something, but slow-mo sometimes like the quality looks bad.
It's bad.
And I'm just like, is that maybe it's just the movie being dated because it's 25 years old, but I'm also like, it's 2000, like the Matrix was the year before.
Yeah, we were there.
Like, they did slow motion just fine.
Yeah, we were there.
Yeah, it's so not great stuff.
It's just not.
And I don't know, it's just disappointing. Like maybe the most disappointing thing is you could be cheesy and bad, but it could still end up being just like kind of fun. Like it's so cheesy and bad, it's fun. I mean, like some of those movies we talked about. Con Air, like,
Oh my
is
gosh.
Con Air goofy? Yes, it's absolutely goofy.
Watch Face Off.
So much fun.
It's one of the stupidest movies in the world, and you
is.
just have a blast the whole time.
Yeah, but this movie didn't even accomplish that.
It doesn't find that tone at all.
What I found is like it's kind of cringy, bad, and it's kind of boring.
It is so boring.
I was doing I talk about this all the time. I kind of gauge a movie sometimes about how much when I'm watching at home I want to be on my phone.
Peeking over at your phone.
I was on my phone. I was pausing a lot to like do other things real quick because
Yeah.
it was a grind.
It's a grind. It's too long.
Yeah.
And you think like, okay, cool, like two kind of like rogue, or not rogue, but like two opposing like agents and teams chasing a virus. Like that's a cool idea.
Like the premise wasn't terrible.
It's not the premise, it's the execution.
It wasn't even the acting, because one thing I was a little surprised about is I think in my mind one of the things I'd always accepted, well, yeah, that was bad, was maybe Doug Gray. I don't know how you say his name. Doug Gray Scott.
Yeah.
Why am I struggling so much? It shouldn't be that hard to say, but names we're not good at.
D. Scott.
Yeah, D. Scott was like, oh, he wasn't good, but actually rewatching this, like, he was up for it. It's
Yeah.
just the movie wasn't good.
Yeah.
So him and Tom Cruise going back and forth.
That stuff works. That's fine. Yeah.
But yeah, I want to go into some of my notes now, because one thing I did do is I didn't do this at all during Final Destination because I was locked into the movie. During Mission Impossible 2, I got out my iPad and I started jotting
making
down
notes.
And my first note was I just wrote immediately radical tonal shift from the first, maybe the most in film history, from one movie to its
another.
sequel. I don't think I've ever seen a greater tonal shift.
Yeah.
Now, for context, I watched this as I decided I'm going to rewatch all the Mission Impossible movies before Dead Reckoning. So I rewatched 1 and then 2, like on back-to-back days. And when you do that, it really
big
stands out
difference.
that you're going like, it's I don't even know, disorienting. That's the only way you can describe it. That like you're going, how is this the same
thing.
character from the same world
Yeah.
as that previous one? And that's sort of the thing that we talked about Mission Impossible did for the first 3 movies. Mission Impossible was a directors making a film in their style. That was like, so the first one is distinctly a De Palma movie.
Yes.
Second one, John Woo. Third one, J.J. Abrams.
Yep.
And then at 4, when Brad Bird takes over, it starts to become Tom Cruise movies.
Yes.
And that's when they find their groove. And
I wanted to talk
going
about this.
forward.
I wanted to talk about this. Tom Cruise, I don't want to say he saved the franchise, because like these movies were making money, but you're right. Until they became Tom Cruise movies, that's when they went to that next level.
yeah.
Yeah.
Uh,
And even just the way it starts, like with him on the mountain, it's so 2000s. Like
So.
cut, like these weird like zoom type things. And I guess just like with anything, when you go backwards, obviously it's going to be, of the time. Sometimes it works. Sometimes it doesn't work, but you understand it because you're like, you know what? Like I watch a lot of 70s movies, and there's stuff that you're like, you know what? Nobody knew any different in the 70s. Even watching the other movie we did today, Final Destination, there was nothing about that I was like, oh man, 2000. But this, from the opening scene, I was like, oh, 2000. Like there's a difference. Like it didn't bother me at all about Final Destination. So many things about this felt 2000s, but in the worst way.
Yeah, I think what makes it that way is I think they were going for everything that was cool in the moment of the 2000s.
Yeah.
Which immediately dates it.
Yep.
So it's not just a movie that happens to take place in 2000s. They were like, what's everything that's working right now?
Because we're just going to throw it
We're gonna
all
throw
into this
all that.
movie.
And that's something that makes movies more dated. I mean, you think back to something like your favorite movie, Jaws.
Yeah.
It doesn't seem very dated, in large part because I think each of the main characters, nothing about them, like their look and everything, is so distinctly of the era. I think there's little things. I mean, like fashion-wise, it's a little different.
Yeah.
But none of them are like, you go into 70s, and if you're just straight up dressed out in disco gear with an afro,
Yeah.
it's like that's gonna stand out.
Yeah.
So I think that's what we're talking about is Tom Cruise. Now, it's not so much his look because the Mission Impossible series goes back and forth between short hair, long hair, Tom Cruise, but it's the all black and sunglasses where it's almost like they were like, you know what's cool right now? The Matrix look. Let's deck him out in the
They're
Matrix
trying to
look.
make Ethan Hunt Neo.
Yes.
Yeah.
That sort of stuff that you're going like so distinctly of the time.
And it just doesn't hold up at all.
Yeah. My next note was, even though the movies were only 5 years apart, right?
94, 96. I think Mission Impossible 1's 96.
I'm going to trust what you say because you always know these way better than I do.
It's 96.
So 4 years apart.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, the technology advancements were seemed like 20 years between the two movies. And I said, no more is this evident than in the first Mission Impossible, they get their mission from an old style cassette tape that just seemed like it was 100 years old at the time. To this one, the video on the Oakleys, which again,
oh my gosh,
so 2000.
So 2000.
I mean, I assume it's Oakleys. I don't even know. Like, I'm sure it was a brand tie-in.
I'm sure it was.
Yeah, watching it and then the slow-mo throw the Oakleys away while they explode.
I hated that shot of the slow. I was just like, oh, okay.
You know what? How old was I in 2000? I was just, I guess it came out in the summer, so I was 15.
Mm-hmm.
That's such a shot for 15-year-olds to be like, awesome.
I know.
And now that I'm older, I look back and go like, you know, of all the things that I look back at 15-year-old me and go, oh, you dumb little naive.
Oh, I know.
And that's one.
Ugh.
Like, I can't believe you ever thought that was cool. So
that's rough.
Yeah, but it is funny. Just movies made in those late 90s where people just didn't understand technology. Like, technology was changing so fast.
It was.
The computer scenes in the original Mission Impossible are so funny.
They are.
I mean, just the obvious things that he's like typing on the screen, and then when it's hilarious to look back on now, because people just didn't know. And then technology had come a long way by this one, and so it's funny that's one of the only that might be the only thing that's better about Mission Impossible 2 than Mission Impossible 1 is we had a little better grasp on technology. Nothing else is better. But
no, nothing else.
My next note. I just wrote, the car scene is ridiculous. The scene of him racing cars along that cliff with Naya.
Yeah.
And it's such a John Woo thing.
It is.
Why are these characters doing death-defying...
Why are you doing this right now?
Just because John Woo wants to have cool car chases and eventually have a scene where they're spinning out of control and their cars are together and we're spinning and then slow-mo staring at each other while Hans Zimmer's dramatic music plays. If I feel most bad for anybody, it's poor Hans Zimmer that his name is attached to this movie because Hans Zimmer is a legend and poor guy.
Yeah. That's would be. I didn't like actually make notes, but that would be one of my notes. That scene is horrible.
Yeah, it's so bad.
That is such a bad scene.
Yeah,
it's just bad.
My next note. I wrote this with a giant exclamation point. Smiling Tom. Tom Cruise is so smiley in this movie. It's unreal. I don't know at what point. It's one of those things you look back on and realize, like, at some point Tom Cruise realized, like, not to be so smiley.
Yeah.
And you don't see it in Mission Impossibles. It really tones down in 3, but 3 because it's too serious.
Yeah.
But 4 on, Tom Cruise figures out, like, this is my look and don't be, like, so smiley. And 2, all the times he's trying to be charming with her and he's got that big old Tom Cruise smile. It is like, oh my gosh.
Which supports my theory that Tom Cruise is not real. He's an alien or something. And then, like, the space overlords are like, humans smile. And so he just, like, he doesn't know how to he just does the biggest, most smile.
You're right. It's literally like the scene in Terminator 2 where Arnold's trying to smile.
It is, yeah.
It's
wild.
Is something. I mean,
and that's part of what I mean too, where it's like in, let's say, Dead Reckoning, it's like Tom Cruise knows how to be Tom Cruise so much better now than he did in 2000.
Yeah, even when he's being charming now, he kind of knows, like, a little smirk, mouth closed.
He knows, like,
don't go full.
Don't go full, you know? Like, don't be a clown.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's wild.
Yeah. My next note.
By the way, I'm loving this. You going through these notes. This is great.
It's just every time something stood out, I just had to write down. Anthony Hopkins taking old man paycheck roles back in 2000.
Oh, dang. Was he ever?
It's so funny to think, like, he's still doing it. It's like, dang, 25 years ago, Anthony Hopkins was already doing stuff that we're going, man, Hopkins is taking a paycheck role in his old age.
I kind of respect it in a way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He did give us this fantastic line, which I just had to write down. This is not mission difficult. It's mission impossible. Difficult should be a walk in the park for you. It's like, First off, the fact that he says this is Mission Impossible. Never before has it been like that's like
It's never been
blatant
that
in the
on the
movies.
nose,
They're
yeah.
in the Impossible Mission. Wait, no Mission. I don't know.
I know what you're saying.
IMF. It's the Impossible Mission Force.
Yes.
they do reference, but they never directly say Mission Impossible until Anthony Hopkins is like, why not?
Yeah.
Well, I'm sure not him. The writers.
Or maybe Hopkins was just like,
Yeah.
this is what I want to say. And
But-
they were all just like, fine, man, just go for it.
It is one of those lines where it's like, it's such a stupid line, but I'll give Anthony Hopkins this. That dude.
He can make
the
about anything
The
work.
reason you put Anthony Hopkins in your movie is because, yeah, he gives such credibility to anything he says.
No matter how stupid what he's
Yeah.
saying is, yeah.
And when he says it's not mission difficult, it's mission impossible, I'm like, did I just laugh at that line?
Oh
It's a
my
terrible
gosh,
line.
it's so bad.
Speaking of bad lines, my next note is a line from Cruise. We just rolled up a snowball and tossed it into hell. Now we'll see what chance it has.
It's just not good. It's not good. It's not good.
That, of course, is describing them sending Naya into the bad
Yes.
guys' lair. But
It's like you could have said literally anything else and it would have been better. Like you picked the worst things to say.
that's when you just picture the writer sampling a couple of different lines, and then he hits that one. He's like, "Oh yeah, that's the one."
Like, oh yeah,
We just rolled
like,
up
guys,
a snowball.
I got it. Everyone,
tossed it
stop,
in
stop brainstorming. It's bad.
My next note, which actually turned out to be a little false, I just wrote Brendan Gleeson cameo.
Yeah.
But then it turns out he's actually in more
Yeah.
of it. But I had totally
Yeah.
forgotten
Right?
Brendan Gleeson was in
Yeah.
this movie at all.
Yeah, I was amazed when I went back and watched this how much of this movie I didn't even remember.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a lot.
There's a lot.
My next note was simply everything works out last second.
Mm-hmm.
There's a whole lot of like
There's a lot of that.
kind of fake built up tension of like, oh, are they gonna, get away at the last
Yeah.
second or pull this off at the last second, and it's just constant.
And that's usually like the climax of the movie.
Yeah.
It shouldn't be all throughout the movie because then it
Right,
becomes
yeah.
less and less effective.
like clearly it's a thing that is common throughout a movie about impossible missions.
yeah, but
They
really
and this one, every single thing is
everything.
My next note, again, this kind of already referred to this. I wrote Doug Gray Scott is good because
Yeah.
a couple scenes is like, yeah,
He does a good job.
this guy's not bad. Now, famously, and we can go ahead and talk about this now if you want. I don't know how much conversation it's worth, but Doug Gray Scott was cast as Wolverine in the X-Men movies and couldn't do it because he was doing this movie.
Hugh Jackman should send that dude like a $10,000 check once a year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, just what a sliding doors moment. Now, of course, it's so easy to say like, well, everything worked out. Hugh Jackman's been great as Wolverine. Can't imagine anybody else.
Yeah.
But I mean, poor Doug Gray Scott's got to be sitting there going like,
I could have
been
been
me.
Wolverine.
Yeah.
Like I could have been cast in Marvel's Deadpool and Wolverine.
Yeah, exactly. I'd still be working in big budget movies if I was Wolverine,
Yeah.
as opposed to being goodness knows where doing goodness knows what.
I couldn't tell you his last 5 movies probably.
I couldn't tell you 5 total movies of his at all.
You're probably right. I couldn't either.
And yeah, I mean, that's bummer for him.
Too bad.
To get the role and then not be able to do it because of scheduling conflicts, which is not a terribly uncommon thing
It happens,
in Hollywood.
yeah.
It does happen, but yeah, that for a guy whose career just didn't end up going anywhere, that's a big one to look at.
That's a bummer for him.
Yeah.
And especially when you factor in, like you said, he's not actively bad in this movie.
Yeah.
Like he's doing a pretty good job with what he has to work with.
Yeah. Maybe my hottest take that I'll say on this one is that after I've watched 1, 2, and 3 now
Okay.
of the Mission Impossible movies. Philip Seymour Hoffman gets so much love for being like the best villain in 3. He's good. Philip Seymour Hoffman's just always good.
He's incapable
it's-
of not being
I think it's a
good.
little overrated because it's a do more with less performance.
Mm-hmm.
He's like, okay, all I'm going to do is just use my deep gravelly voice to say these lines.
Say
and it's going to
ominous
sound
things.
really cool. Doug Gray Scott, I think, is a better villain than Philip Seymour Hoffman's villain.
I don't.
I think he's actually a great mission. He's like I'm kind of the, like I said, anti-Ethan
Yeah.
Hunt, polar opposite. I think he did really good, and I think if the movie was the problem, not him and even his character.
Absolutely, the movie was the problem.
So, like,
I don't hate the take.
Yeah, it sounds crazy to say because the movie is the worst of the series.
Yeah,
but yeah, it wasn't his fault.
yeah.
My next note, I literally don't even know. I think I do. I know when I wrote this. Actually, now that I'm thinking about it, I just wrote gratuitous spins, and I think it was in the scene when they're in the lab in the shootout.
Oh
and
my
how
gosh.
many times John Woo loves a good spin into the gunshot.
He loves that. Yeah, I mean, it's not uncommon. Like Scorsese loves what he loves, and he does it over and over again. He's just better at it than John Woo is, to say the least. And yeah, and I don't know. The one thing I thought the whole time I watched this movie is just Cruise and John Woo are just not a good pairing.
Yeah,
They're just not. Like, Cruise is so cool and makes so many things look cool, but for some reason to me, he just seemed out of place trying to do like this John Woo stuff.
yeah.
Which goes back to what we were saying. The series is better when it adapts to Cruise instead of Cruise adapting to whatever the director liked to do.
Yeah. I do think maybe one of the reasons that it is a bad combo is actually sort of a testament to Cruise. We all know Cruise goes 100% with whatever he does. When he does something, he's like, I'm going to do this and go full out. And so when Woo's like, I like, spins and flips and stuff, Cruise is like, well, then we're doing the 100% version of spins and flips and everything else, because you think about, like, we talked about other John Woo movies, Broken Arrow and Face Off. Now, do they have their own, like, goofy action? Is there flips and spins in those? Sure. Not nearly as much, probably because the actors doing them are not Tom Cruise.
Yeah.
Because Christian Slater and John Travolta and Nicolas Cage and those guys, I mean, there's a lot of stunt work in there, and some of those movies have famous, like, if you pause it, like, that's clearly not.
You don't even have to pause it.
Yeah, well, yeah.
Face Off's terrible about that.
But still,
Yeah.
like, and then this one, like I said, it's like the most spinning.
Yeah,
the
so
most
this,
flipping.
it's like it's just not even cool after so long.
Yeah. And it's and so many times that it's so clearly unnecessary. You're like, why is the character spinning? And he's like, I know it's because the director thinks it looks cool, but like,
there's no reason for them to be doing this right now.
Right. So my next note, and this one is really kind of maybe the most glaring one to me, is it's weird to see Tom's stunts using effects instead of just real stunt work.
Yes.
And I wrote in parentheses, jumping out of the building and parachuting in this one, where it was clearly like just green screen work.
Yep.
And I'm like, talk about something that's so antithetical to what the Mission Impossible series is now famous for.
Like doing it for real.
When they're blowing out this action and it's all clearly like, a lot of special effects work. It's like, it's
not what this is.
Yeah. You're doing it wrong.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, this is the black sheep of the franchise.
Yeah. And then my final note, now that's the final thing to talk about, but just the final thing I wrote down was just running flip kicks, because at that final scene, how many times does Tom Cruise do a full on
and
flip?
that feels everything he does in this movie feels so out of place to the rest of the franchise.
Yeah.
Like
you could never, if somebody watched just all the other Mission Impossible movies and then you showed them this one, they'd be like, this isn't what? This isn't
I think just some random Tom Cruise action movie almost.
Yeah. Just basically just what it is.
You're right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Dude, I want to talk about a scene that just cracked me up and how bad it was. When it's towards the end, when they realize that they pulled the mask switch and the guy sees like he's got the thing on his finger, and John Woo's like, give me the most slow motion ever. And he leans down and he pulls the mask off. Then he does the, he like the scream and anger. Then we cut to Tom Cruise running. He pulls off his mask, or you think it's the other guy, and he pulls off his mask and it's cruising. It's like John Woo's just like, nope, more slow motion. Let's draw this out to the point of just ridiculousness. That was another scene. I was like, this is just bad.
Yeah, this is one of those movies, much like a lot of Zack Snyder movies, where you wonder if somebody went through and calculated, like, if we put all the slow-mo at real speed, how long would this movie be?
Yeah.
Because one shocking thing about this movie is the first Mission Impossible is an hour and 50 minutes. Mm-hmm. And it is a, like, sophisticated, we
Yes.
take our time, let things breathe, like spy movie.
Mm-hmm.
And somehow it's 13 minutes shorter than Mission Impossible 2, which is we're just
Doing everything.
full-octane action movie,
Yeah.
dumbed down. How is it longer? Well, I'll tell you how.
Slow
Because of
motion.
all the daggum slow motion.
That guy leans down because the character is laying on the ground. He leans down. It feels like it takes 5 minutes because it's doing the slow motion, and you're just like, let's go.
Yeah. The moment that cracked me up was not long after or before, I can't remember which. That scene is Tom Cruise blows a hole in a doorway and there's fire, and then slow motion of Tom Cruise walking past the doorway, fire around it, pigeon flying in, like we were talking about, and it's just like, that is the most woo shot I've
Yeah,
ever
right
seen
there.
in my life.
That shot.
That's
Yep.
woo. Gosh, it's so hard to talk about this without, like, I almost feel bad that we're just bad mouthing it, but like it's kind
I know
of
because it's a
kind of the
franchise that
movie
we
it is.
love and that means a
Yeah.
lot to this podcast. But
Yeah. So we already, talked a lot about Woo. It was written by two people with no significance, which does not surprise me at all.
Doesn't surprise me
that two
at all.
people wrote this. I mean, this movie, I guess, other than we talked about like the kind of elevator pitch, could sound decent. Nothing about the way they flesh it out actually
works.
that well. Of course, the third credit on the writing staff is the guy who created the original show, who just gets a credit on all
Always
of
gets
them.
credited. Yeah.
Hans Zimmer, I mentioned just being
Ugh.
sad that he was associated with this. Honestly, it felt a little Hans Zimmer phoning it in.
Yeah.
And I wonder if
Like he knew.
he knew, because the sounds, like, of course, you got the iconic Mission Impossible theme. Like everybody
Yeah.
who scores these movies just has to do their take on that.
Yep.
And the action score was okay. It was kind of just generic Hans
It
Zimmer.
was pretty generic. Yeah.
But then, like, every time Tom Cruise and Thandie Newton are like locked into each other, and we've got this different theme. I was listening, I was like, how is this that different than? I really wanted to like set it up to play between Gladiator's theme when he's like walking through the wheat field,
Right.
and this. I was like, I think they're really similar. It almost feels like Hans Zimmer was like, I don't really want to write something that new. I'm just going to slightly vary one I've already done.
I'll change my Gladiator score a little bit.
Which also had me thinking, like, it could also be that we're at a point in Hans Zimmer's career where for a lot of the 90s, he's scoring a lot of movies, but a lot of these like action movies.
Mm-hmm.
And he had some of my favorite action movie scores going through
Yeah.
the 90s. But it might have been getting to the point where he's like, I'm
What
tired.
else?
I'm tired
What
of
else
doing
is
the
there
same
I
thing.
can do?
And because it did feel like there was a stretch where he kind of fell off or like wasn't as celebrated. And then
Him and Nolan found
him and
each
Nolan
other.
found each other, and he started doing just totally different types
Yeah.
of scores. And I think it like reinvigorated his career.
Yeah.
This kind of felt like a guy who got tired of doing the same thing,
Right.
Hans Zimmer. And I feel bad saying that. I don't know him. I don't know what he's doing. Maybe he was really putting effort into this. I don't know. It just felt that way.
Yeah, it did.
And so I was, like I said, it would have made me sad if I didn't know that Hans found his way back.
He's doing just fine.
Yeah.
He's doing all right.
He crushed it again and again with Nolan stuff, and then
Oh my gosh,
just
yes.
beyond. I did want to shout out some of the awards recognition that this movie did get.
Ooh, some MTV Movie Awards, I bet.
So it won 2 MTV Movie Awards.
Right on.
It won for Best Male Performance for Tom Cruise.
Okay.
Why not?
Sure, why not?
I meant
What's
to-
it matter?
If I had more time, I kind of ran out of time. I was going to look up what the other nominations were there because I was like, I don't know. Come on. It won for Best Action Sequence for the motorcycle chase.
Hey, okay.
It was a weird time in Tom's career because it was already known that Tom liked to do a lot of his own stunts, but it wasn't obviously the full-on
Yeah.
blowout. So I was wondering like how much, and like I said, it seemed like a lot of this was effects driven. So I was wondering how much Tom actually did in a lot of these.
Yeah,
these
I don't know either.
sequences.
But you're right. This is just such a weird time for him.
Yeah. And then the other not surprising award show, it got some representation. It was the Razzies. Only nominations, but for Worst Supporting Actress for Thandie Newton, which raised the question, was Thandie Newton that bad in this movie, or was the movie just that bad? I don't know what to think about her as an actress.
I don't
honestly.
really either. It's really hard to fault anybody for not being good in this movie.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just easier. It's just easier to blame the movie.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. That's an interesting thought.
So Thandie Newton, I will say, I've always felt like Thandie Newton walked so that Zoe Saldana could run.
Right.
You know, like
Right.
it's almost like a market correction, but Zoe Saldana was
Came
a little
years later.
little later. I mean, Zoe Saldana is so much more famous now than Thandie Newton ever was. But when she first showed up, I was like, she kind of looks like Thandie
Yeah.
Newton to me.
Absolutely.
But
I think her biggest thing in this movie, whether, good, bad, more than anything, I think just forgettable.
as evidenced by the fact that like she's never brought up again.
Never, ever. And these movies call back to the previous movies quite a bit. Never hear anything about her.
and,
Or really Mission Impossible 2 at all.
Correct.
Yeah.
Again, the black sheep of the family.
It absolutely is.
It's funny. Like you can almost picture Mission Impossible movies as like a family photo of like all the siblings lined up, and
Like, why don't you go
and
ahead?
everybody else is dressed kind of normal, and then you got like the 2000s like goth kid or like kid dressed like the Mission all black, just
Right.
standing out. I was like, that's Mission Impossible.
That's
2.
Mission Impossible 2.
Yeah.
Correct.
Oh, by the way, the other Razzie it was nominated for was worst remake or sequel, which didn't win. So I give it that. I don't know
Good
what
for
win.
Mission Impossible 2.
But that did lead to I wrote for best trivia. This isn't even actually like IMDb trivia. I just had to write this in there. The one thing this movie did, maybe the best thing about this movie, is it gave us what is, in my opinion, the greatest MTV Movie Awards spoof, which was Ben Stiller as his stunt double Tom Cruise, spelled differently.
It's so good. I of course watched it today.
If this movie didn't exist, we would not have gotten that, and it's almost worth it just for that spoof.
It is incredible, and it's still funny 25 years later.
It is from Ben Stiller, of course, making fun of the big smile and laugh.
Oh
of
my
Tom
God.
Cruise. I mean, the first moments of that spoof were from it takes the shot of Tom Cruise on the rocks, like turning and facing the camera, and when it turns, and it's Ben Stiller in that wig. So funny.
It just works, man. And I will say, I don't know if that's like a start of the process of who Tom Cruise is now, but him just having like he comes off as this ultra serious, like I take my craft so seriously. Clearly the guy has a sense of humor, even about himself.
Yeah, and you have to think that planted the seeds for him eventually being in Tropic Thunder.
Oh,
with
yes,
Ben
Les
Stiller's
Grossman.
movie. Yeah, where you're like, they did a comedic thing together all these years ago,
Yeah.
and Stiller must have said like, hey, this guy's kind of game, and he's
Oh,
funny,
yeah.
he got a sense of humor, and
It's funny. It just adds to the mystery that is Tom Cruise.
but watching the movie, already you're kind of laughing at the motorcycle action sequence because it's so over the top. But all I could think of was the spoof scene when they're like mapping it out with like
Yeah.
the models, and Ben Stiller's character's like, I got an idea. I'm just gonna throw it out there. Just thinking, what if when they jump off the motorcycles and they're in midair, we just zoom in on Tom's face and he says, "This mission, it just got a whole heck of a lot more impossibler."
Yeah. It's
John Woo just goes, "Get out."
yeah, it's so good. It's so fun. You're right. It's almost worth having this movie in existence for that skit.
Yeah.
It's like Ben Stiller single-handedly trying to come in and salvage something out of Mission Impossible 2.
Yeah. The good news about Mission Impossible 2 is that the franchise survived. That's just sort of
Which that's another thing too. Like watching this one, it just adds to like what we talked about when we did Dead Reckoning Part 1, our very first podcast, where it's like that's why I say this is one of the most fascinating franchises in movie history. Because you watch 1, 2, 3 as you have, and I'm not kidding when I say in the moment we were like, oh, okay, like we're done with these, and they were fine, and we're done. And it's got to be one of the just wildest things that this franchise not only carried on, but improved by leaps and bounds.
yeah.
It's wild, man.
Yeah. It became such a different thing. As we said, 1 through 3 were filmmakers making their distinct style of film.
4, 5, 6, 7, 8 is just Tom Cruise being fully formed movie star entertainer Tom Cruise.
Yeah. I mean, and you really see that it's such a small thing, but you see that division in just the naming of the films from Mission Impossible 2, Mission Impossible 3. And then from that point on, we're not doing 4, 5, 6. We're doing Mission Impossible with these
Cool
titles.
names.
Mission Impossible Ghost Protocol to Rogue Nation to Fallout to
Dead Reckoning
to
to the
Final
Final
Reckoning.
Reckoning. Yep.
Yeah, just changed its whole presentation.
It did. It absolutely did.
I feel like I'm going to miss something else that's important. I guess here's one thing I forgot to talk about is critics were low on this movie as well, 57%,
Yeah.
42% from audiences. Again, surprising because this seems like the type of movie that you would just expect critics to be even harder on than audiences.
Yeah.
Because audiences usually just have a bigger tolerance for dumb.
Yeah, people just didn't. I mean, it made money,
I would
right?
say, well, that's my next note is $125 million budget, $546 million gross worldwide.
That's the power of Cruise, man.
Is the power of Cruise, but I guess I'll also say this: that's the power. The one thing that Woo has going for him is there's nothing lost in the translation with
Yeah.
flips and spins. You
There's
know,
not.
like nobody,
And pigeons.
yeah, nobody in another country is going like, "What's happening? He's spinning. Do they do that in America? We don't do that here. No,
Fair enough.
Everyone gets it, and I mean, I assume also, where's John Woo from? Is he from China? I'm going to sound so racist right now.
I am too.
Yeah. I just always assume like John Woo movies probably do better over there too.
probably do,
because I should just stop talking.
Moving on.
Yeah. Whoopsies. Okay. Don't worry. I will edit that out. I probably won't because it takes a lot of work.
It's
and
fine.
It would look funny.
It's
but,
fine.
Gosh. 2025. What time to be alive? I could have made any of those comments in 2000.
Yeah, you'd have been fine.
Yeah.
Would have been no big deal.
All right. So the next time that we will be on a podcast together, thankfully, after what feels like a whole lot of waiting, we will be talking about the newest and probably the last Mission Impossible movie.
I think we'll see depending on how much money it makes.
Yeah. I mean,
And if Cruise just gets bored one day and it's like, you know what, we're doing another Mission Impossible.
yeah. I mean, they're calling it the Final Reckoning, which can just be a cool name, but I think they put final in there for a reason
think so,
to make
too.
it so if it is the last one, it has that culminating
I would
title.
agree.
And but you're right, like because of the way they make these movies is they think of some big stunt they want to do and then build a story around
Yeah.
it. All it's gonna take is Tom Cruise figuring out some new stunt he wants to do and going like, I need my franchise back so I can.
I'm
do
pretty
this.
sure it's a real thing that Tom Cruise wants to film some scenes of a movie in outer space. I don't think that's a joke. I think he actually wants to do that.
I believe it.
So we might get Mission Impossible 9,
Yeah.
Battle for Mars or something like that. I don't know. We'll work. I'll work on that title a little bit.
I think it's perfect.
Okay.
Let's bring Woo back. No, I'm just kidding.
Are there pigeons on Mars?
Mars pigeons.
Mars
I love it.
pigeons.
I did remember the one last thing that I feel like I need to talk about with this movie. And you're gonna laugh at me, but I'm sorry. This is just me. This is 2000 me that still works. Limp Bizkit did the theme song for this one. Limp Bizkit is ridiculous. Fred Durst is an absurd frontman.
Yeah.
I love the rock version of this theme song.
Yeah.
I love the hard guitar.
See,
of
it
the
did not
Mission
work
Impossible
at
theme.
all for me.
I totally get that.
Yeah.
I 100% do not blame anybody who's like, this is
Yeah.
dumb. I love it.
So here's a follow-up question. Do you think Durst studied like Tom Cruise and tried to channel that into his acting performance in Y2K? He's like, I remember on Mission Impossible 2, Cruise would do this. I'm going to try this for Y2K.
And that's why I did so many spins. And
Yeah.
flips. No.
Yeah.
Oh, man. Yeah.
Yeah, really weird to spend an entire podcast talking about how much we didn't like this movie when it's about a franchise that means so much to us.
Yeah.
But we have to be honest, and this is just not a good movie.
Yeah. And I feel very comfortable now putting this as the last by far in the franchise. And again, I always defended it for the longest time. Being like, it's not as bad as everyone says. It's not as bad as everyone says. It's as bad as everyone says.
Who would have thought we'd do 2000 movies and Final Destination just kicked Mission Impossible's butt?
I know.
Like so much better.
That's wild. I really expected that to be the other way. I was like, I'm going to defend Mission Impossible 2.
And I'm going
not
to point
lie,
out why Final Destination's not
And
that
it
good.
definitely went the other way.
Definitely.
Yeah.
So let's just quickly ask, like, what do you think you're going to say about Final Reckoning? I mean, what are your expectations? Like,
It's so hard because the expectations are really high. I don't want them to be because it's just easier to be disappointed that way. But I mean, we talk about it all the time. This is a franchise where you kind of know what you're getting into. It's not something where you feel like can be spoiled,
right.
right? Like, so I just expect to enjoy it as much as I enjoyed Dead Reckoning.
Yeah.
You know, like
That's kinda what
I
I'm-
don't need it to be the greatest thing ever. I actually I'm kind of happy with the idea that Fallout, I think I'll decide for sure on the rewatch of all.
Probably
of them. I think
the
Fallout
best.
is the pinnacle, but it's not that means these other ones are bad, or it's not like, oh, we're downhill. It's just like we've got the best ones, and the other ones are just icing on the cake, just some extra ones to enjoy. So
I'm kind of in the same boat as you. I want to just walk out and be like, oh, great. Because, it was originally Dead Reckoning Part 2.
yeah,
I just want to feel like it belongs
yeah.
in there with Dead Reckoning.
I will say this, just maybe as the final thing I'll say, is that Mission Impossible movies just lend themselves to incredible previews.
Oh, yeah.
Not just because of the stunt work. There's always like exposition from the movies that plays perfectly into the previews.
I mean, basically, the trailer for this new one is just Tom Cruise going, I need you to trust me one last time.
And before that, it's the characters recapping like the things that he's been through.
Yeah.
While you see flashes of it, just reminding you why you love
And
the
like,
movie.
in defense, that was meant to kill him. And he,
Yeah.
it doesn't, you almost don't even need to market the new movie other than just be like, hey, it's a Mission Impossible movie. Remember that one time when Cruise was hanging off the side of an airplane? That's pretty much the marketing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I'm excited. I think it's gonna be a lot of fun. And
like I said before, a rare time when you and I are seeing a movie together with
right.
others.
yeah,
But you and I,
yeah,
doesn't happen a ton.
So we'll definitely be doing that, and then we'll talk a little more off air. But there's a couple other movies coming out that we'll probably have to talk about as well at some point. But it's just they're such low priority in comparison to the new Mission
we are
Impossible.
getting to a pretty fun time though.
Yeah.
And I'll just say super quick. I saw the Final Destination the new Final Destination movie last night. I saw 5 previews, and every one of them I was like, yeah, I'll go see that.
Yeah.
5 in a row of movies I would go see and will go see.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I just ended my school year, so I'm officially on summer break. So it's movie season for sure right now.
Absolutely.
So yeah, look forward to seeing Mission Impossible, having that discussion.
I do too.
And
Do you think when we podcast about the new Mission Impossible, we can have pigeons and fire around us? Is that in our budget?
we'll find a way.
We'll figure it out.
yeah, we'll contact Wu, see who his pigeon guy is.
Yeah. Like, we need your pigeon guy. Stat.
He'd be like, pigeon guy, they're my pigeons.
Yeah.
I keep
They
pigeons.
just follow me everywhere I go.
Oh, bless Wu.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you everybody for
See you soon.
joining us. We'll see you next time.